Ah, yes, the quintessential love story, the tragedy. Have you ever watched a movie or read a book of a love tragedy that for whatever reason, it just seemed to hit a little bit harder? Maybe it left you feeling emotions that made you feel just kind of inexplicably raw. Maybe it made you think of the one that got away, the one that discarded you, or maybe even the one that you never, ever even had. That unrequited love, that torturous limerence. Maybe it was a love story that you saw and you couldn't stop thinking about it for minutes, if not hours, maybe even days afterwards. You wanted to watch it again with your friends. You wanted to tell it and share it with all of your family members. Maybe even you're a guy who shirks the idea of lovey-dovey romance. But maybe even you too saw that certain film and you felt something. And be honest, there's absolutely no shame in it. Welcome, my friends, to Tale Oft Told podcast. This is episode 1. All right, well, here we are, episode 1, and wouldn't you know it, inevitably, I appear to have a head cold. So, bear with me as I get through this, and forgive my voice that is going to be a little bit more hoarse than usual. As the podcast progresses, I promise that it will be a lot more smoother and warmer sounding, but for now, it just has this kind of ashy kind of sound to it, and I apologize, my dear listener. Okay, but this is life, right? It's just the human condition. But going back to original thread, if you have indeed seen a movie about a love story and it impacted you in ways that you didn't necessarily understand, you're not alone. These particular movies or love stories that hit hard, well, they tend to all have something in common. They are all some form of echo from a specific Greek myth, that of the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. What story, you might be asking? Yes, it's a Greek myth. Well, their names sound kind of weird. Yes, those were Greek names. They did sound different. But this is a story that has it all. It has romance and strong passion, and then dark loss and utter despair. It's perhaps one of the greatest love tragedies ever told, and it's enriched with deep archetypal meanings and symbols. It's also been repeated ad nauseum, oft and oft again, in movies, operas, books, and shows. And you and me, my dear listener, we're going to watch them all. We're just going to see every single movie, every single last one of them. That's a joke. There's tons of movies that follow this arc, but we're going to watch some of the very well-known ones, and we will discuss them. And quintessentially, that's what this is. This is a podcast where we watch films that follow the arc and uses the tropes of the famous myth Orpheus and Eurydice. And trust me, you know this story, even if you don't. And if you don't, well, you'll know it soon enough. As we watch these movies and we discuss and we analyze and pick them apart, we will look at how they follow the ancient myth in the most modern of interpretations, or maybe not so quite modern, leaving us to ask, what does this interpretation reveal about the time in which it was made? And what does it reveal to us about ourselves? What movies are they, you might be asking? Well, there's plenty. And you'll need to tune into each episode to find out the next movie we'll watch. You can also go to my website, taleofttold.com, to see the upcoming movie that's being listed so that you have plenty of time to go and watch it and put together your own thoughts. And when you do, you can go ahead and feel free to comment on the previous or past movie by going to taleofttold.com. If you're lucky to subscribe and listen and follow this podcast in real time, then be sure to continually stay tuned and tell your friends to also join the fun. And if it's not your cup of tea, well, that's okay. this podcast is still sitting here and you can come back to it and enjoy it. Or maybe my voice is just kind of, boring enough that it'll help put you to sleep. That's usually why I listen to podcasts. Some of the featured movies will be clear homages to the original Orpheus and Eurydice story. Others, however, will be modern interpretations that maybe loyally adhere with fidelity to the ideas and the story, but they'll completely take the characters and the context and just switch them around or change them or adapt them in different ways. Most of these movies, I guarantee you know, but maybe you never knew that it was connected to this particular myth. Other movies might just surprise you entirely. If some movies aren't to your taste, and we are humans, we all have a different taste and variety and preferences. So if it's not to your taste, no worries. Go ahead and skip whatever movie you don't like. But if you find a movie and you do believe that its story has this myth embedded in it, feel free to go to taleofttold.com and reach out as to why you think it would potentially be good content for this podcast. Also, this is a great thing for you to do by yourself, but you might also want to have a friend or some friends join you. So by all means, feel free to form a watch party and have group discussions. If you send pictures, I will be happy to feature them on taleofttold.com, and if I can create some socials accounts, then we can put together some hashtags as well. Some of you might be asking, is this some sappy podcast that analyzes rom-coms and Hallmark movies? No, not at all. Orpheus and Eurydice is a different kind of love story. In fact, this is probably the best moment to offer a trigger warning. A lot of the interpretations of the Orpheus and Eurydice myth are tragedies. They can feature such edgy topics as prostitution, drugs, suicide, or violence. They are, again, tragedies. So a great deal of them might be even deemed sad or depressing. Right now, I don't feel like I'm doing a good job promoting my podcast, honestly. But I digress. There are also plenty of movies where in the end, you might say that Orpheus does get the girl. He does get his Eurydice. Because sometimes, in a historical sense, there have been times when we just needed that. I can also hear many of you asking, what if I'm not familiar with the Orpheus and Eurydice myth? And if you've never heard the story, no problem. That's okay. Because on this very pilot episode, I, my dear listener, am going to tell you the story as best as I can. You can also go to taleofttold.com and read the story transcribed from my telling. You can also buy a book on Greek and Roman myths, or you can simply Google Orpheus and Eurydice to see what comes up. This is just a myth. It's something you may have learned in elementary school. It's very much public domain. But before I begin, I should also offer a disclaimer. If you're familiar with Greek and Roman myths, they often are told passively, meaning they don't have a lot of flair for drama. They tend to read like scripture, as in so and such begat so and so, ad nauseum. You know how it goes. So for this telling, I'm going to add a little of my own literary and artistic license, and I hope you like it, and I'm sorry if you don't. At the end of this podcast, we will announce the first film selected for viewing, as well as where and how you can watch it. To be honest, and let's be real, unless it's something completely wacky, and there are wacky movies, most stories have already been told. That's just a fact. Similar to songs written with the same chords and melodies, stories are simply recycled and reframed. So let's go back to the beginning, to the original OG story. And once it's over, we'll go over the main characters and ideas. Lastly, this podcast is for anyone and everyone. So let's have fun, shall we? Okay, our story begins with Aristeus, the god of agriculture, shepherds, harvest, and beekeeping. He noticed one day in the forest a beautiful and lovely nymph. She was gorgeous, with long curly hair, a dimpled smile, and eyes that could just pierce right into your soul. He'd spy on her from a distance, watching her bathe in the pools and the cascades, or dancing with the other nymphs in the forest. He immediately knew he wanted her. He felt such an insatiable desire for her. But he didn't know how to approach her. For Aristeus was a very busy god, always doing everything he could to ensure a successful harvest and that the bees would be able to pollinate. He didn't have a lot of time to refine his charm, his ability to seduce. But one day, he decided that he would appear before Eurydice and he would propose a traditional courtship. But as he did, he was interrupted by a sudden sound. It was the sound of a beautiful lyre playing in the forest. He wasn't the only one who'd hear it. He watched as Eurydice turned around, about-faced, and noticed it as well. Curious, she tilted her head, and she slowly followed the sound of the lyre to a spread in the forest where several animals appeared to be kneeling before this handsome man presented before her. She pursed her lips as she smiled, and her eyes gleamed in fascination. It was the most beautiful music she'd ever heard, played by the most handsome man she'd ever seen. He was Orpheus, mortal son of Apollo, and he liked to play his lyre in the forest. It was the perfect place to be able to practice without interruption. Yes, his father Apollo was known to play the lyre, and he could play the lyre, but Orpheus didn't carry the grand responsibilities of his father, and so with all his free time, he easily had surpassed his father's abilities. He was so good that, as evidence from what Eurydice was seeing right now, the animals themselves would come to listen, and the trees and the bushes would animate and lean towards the harmonious sounds. Orpheus momentarily stopped playing when he saw the dainty hand clear the brush, and a beautiful nymph stepped out. "Please," she said, "keep playing." She went ahead and sat upon a fallen branch and crossed her legs and rested her head upon her fist, intently eyeing Orpheus and his lyre. Her smile wasn't just infectious, for when Orpheus returned the smile, he realized that he was sitting across from his person. She was his love, his home, his forever, his eternal return. Eurydice was her name. A sudden stream of excitement pulsed through his veins, and in turn he directed it right into the tunes that he played with his lyre, playing notes and harmonies that transmitted his very love. And so he continued to play, with Eurydice tapping her foot, swaying her head, feeling the tune reverberate as such to warm the heart of the nymph and enchant all of her senses. And when he was done playing, they just looked at each other momentarily, until finally she approached him, never taking her eyes off him, wanting to see the lyre up closer. She wanted to see Orpheus's hands, the very hands that had managed to produce such a tune. Her bare arm underneath her tunic made ever so slight contact against Orpheus, and it provoked an immediate flush of passion between them. It was love, and not just any love. It felt predestined, as if time itself had planned for Eurydice to hear Orpheus and find him right there in the forest. Orpheus was this beautiful, handsome magician, and Eurydice was literally the embodiment of a perfect music that only the gods could produce themselves. Oh, how she inspired him, and she was honored and proud to be with him, a master magician, the son of Apollo. They became inseparable. Eurydice never tired of hearing Orpheus practice on his lyre. She would take him to some of the most beautiful, guarded, and secluded cascades and treasures and springs in the forest for inspiration. When he wasn't playing, they could also talk for hours. They'd make love. They'd simply go on long walks. It was as if they couldn't know enough about each other. They couldn't touch enough of each other. They couldn't see enough of each other. Every detail, regardless of how minimal, whether it be the bracelets Eurydice liked to wear on her wrists, or the shy smirk Orpheus gave whenever meeting one of Eurydice's friends or family. They just wanted to know everything about each other. And where once there was Orpheus, son of Apollo, the master lyre player, and Eurydice, the beautiful forest nymph, there now was simply Orpheus and Eurydice. For you couldn't be one without there being the other. Always. Their families took notice quickly, and it was no surprise when Orpheus and Eurydice announced their intention to marry. With Orpheus having a father with connections at the highest levels of Olympus, and Eurydice being a beloved ever-social nymph, the celebration was to be one of the grandest festivities ever. They were even able to obtain the blessing from Hymenaeus, god of marriage, although he warned that the harmony of their matrimony wouldn't last. It's interesting how elder gods seem to know these things, but they never actually intervene, isn't it? Nevertheless, Orpheus and Eurydice were unfazed. And so as the day comes, it's the grandest of weddings ever. There are flowers, there's singing, there's dancing and music. This is a love between these two that feels as warm as the sun, as timeless as the earth's rotations. For such an infinite love between a pair was truly cause for the biggest and grandest of celebrations. The scene was overflowing with overjoy. Everyone was happy for the couple. Everyone except for one person. Aristeus watched from a distance behind a patch of trees. He could not understand how he could have done so much for mankind. Just as Hercules had gone on epic adventures, Aristeus too had a long list of merits he provided for mankind. He brought water to droughts, pastures for shepherds, fertilizer to barren soil, and successful harvests even in the coldest of cold weather. He was convinced he deserved a beautiful wife such as Eurydice based on his merit alone, and yet she goes and simply throws herself aimlessly at a lyre-playing son of Apollo. Seeing the happiness and the gloating of all the wedding-goers threw him into a fit of rage that absolutely finally exploded. Eurydice didn't know what was good for her, so he decided he'd simply take her and ravish her. In a poof, Aristeus appeared at the center of the dancing circle. He immediately lashed out and grabbed Eurydice by the arm, yelling, "This is preposterous. You're mine, and I shall have you." Orpheus grabbed his wife away from the clutches of this lesser mortal of domesticity, and the both ran into the forest. "Run," he told her. "Run with me as fast as you can." Yet as she ran, there was a sudden hiss and a shake from the ground beneath Eurydice's feet, and the lunge of a snake leapt forward and dug its fangs into her leg, the wounded snake writhing as it did so. "Orpheus," she shouted, "stop! I've been bitten," she exclaimed. Her run hobbled to a stop as she fell to the ground and grasped her leg. Perhaps it was the adrenaline of the blood pumping through her body that made the venom take hold, but soon Eurydice's body went limp. Aristeus, upon seeing the mishap he caused, slipped away back into the covert of the thicket of the forest, and he would speak nothing of this to anyone, ever. By the time the wedding-goers caught up, they found Orpheus sobbing uncontrollably as he mercilessly clutched Eurydice's limp, lifeless body. As we all know, the first stage of grieving is denial, and Orpheus was no exception. He had just married Eurydice, his person, his love, and in an instant, now she was gone. He suddenly felt incredibly isolated. For Orpheus, it felt like one of the most cruelest of cruel jokes, that the world could give him everything, and in an instant, leave him feeling the dark abyss of nothing. So, he did the only thing he could think to do to express his grief. He played his lyre. So sad was the tune he played that all of the gods and mortals alike could hear the song of his sadness. The lyre brought forth a fog and damp darkness in which every man, every woman, be they mortal or immortal, could feel his mourning. His friends tried to comfort him, but so imprisoned in his grief was he that he couldn't even hear the words they'd say. There was little that could be said. Rather, it was Orpheus who lamented and haunted the world with his lyre. It was this overhanging dreadful cloud that made Apollo listen to his son when he approached him. "I want her back, Dad," Orpheus told his father. "I have to have her back. It was a fluke. She should have never been taken from me." Apollo listened to his son earnestly and with compassion. "I understand," he responded. "I've seen the passing of mortals since time immemorial. It's imprudent and disingenuous when we try and disavow ourselves of the order established by the oldest of old gods. It never goes well when we do. Death is one of the greatest promises among mortals, so strong a promise that we as immortals are truly forbidden to break it." Orpheus fell to his knees in despair. "Please, Father, I beg of you, I must have her back. Bring her back to me." "She's with Hades, Orpheus. The underworld is a one-way door. There's no coming back. I'm sorry." "Then let me speak with Hades, your uncle, and convince him otherwise. I'll play for him. Just please tell me how to get to him." Apollo sighed. He knew there was no convincing his son otherwise. A few days passed. In the dead darkness of night, Orpheus did as his father instructed, and he met with Hermes, the messenger god who would bring him to the river Styx. "You have your lyre?" he asked. Orpheus lifted his tunic to reveal the golden harp he stored under his arm. "Good," said Hermes. "You're going to need it. Keep your hood on. Try and act dead, so the dead don't get suspicious when they see you." And so Hermes rowed the boat with Orpheus until reaching an outpost. Chiron, the ferryman, came out. Chiron could immediately sense something was different. Hermes never arrived with just one passenger. It was always a full boat of souls. Hermes immediately, in turn, sensed Chiron's suspicion. "Whom are you bringing to the underworld?" Hermes motions Orpheus to remove his hood, which he does. Chiron immediately sees Orpheus, a living, breathing man. "Blasphemy," Chiron exclaims. "Hermes, I can't. There's no way. He'll," referring to Hades, "will be furious. He'll have my head." Again, Hermes motioned to Orpheus. Orpheus took out his lyre and began to play. Immediately, Chiron was put in a trance. It was the most beautiful and sad playing he'd ever heard. So beautiful was the playing that it dissolved his worries. Although reluctant and reticent, he went ahead and invited Orpheus to board his boat. "Just keep your head down and always covered. We can't have the dead knowing there's a live man entering the underworld. For this world is not meant for the living. You can't have the souls here thinking otherwise. I'll do everything you ask. Just get me to Hades," said Orpheus. He could use some entertainment, I suppose. And so Chiron and Orpheus slowly rowed through the underworld down the river Styx, passing the myriads of floating souls who peered beadily at the sole passenger of Chiron's boat. The chorus of their floating voices stirred around Orpheus, penetrating into his psyche, making him nearly disoriented and unaware of what direction was up or down or front and back. It was unclear whether the boat floated on water or if it glided on air. Directionality and dimension simply had no use here. He fought to remain steady as the pangs of emptiness and the infinite void of the universe and the absence of time itself loomed ever real around him. There were no voices, but rather a chorus of spirits churning, like wind. "Just stay steady," Chiron said assuringly. "Like I said, this is no place for the living. We don't have much further to go." Into the distance, a large, dark ledge could be seen. Underneath it, a large gate that slowly opened. The boat passed through slowly, and then it stopped. Or did it? The darkness and stillness that surrounded made it feel as if the boat was levitating, as opposed to rowing. Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, a dock appears, and Chiron drops his anchor. Chiron steps onto the dock and reaches his hand out to assist Orpheus. Almost there. And so they walk up some winding stairs, walking over, under, all over them, until suddenly they reach a pantheon that adorns dark and emptiness, just as others might boast gold and statues. From the rock and darkness, a large, foreboding figure turns around and faces the two men. Chiron, explain this now. Why have you brought a living soul here? What possessed you to make such a decision? Orpheus threw his hand in front of Chiron, signaling it was his moment now. Forgive this man, dear uncle. I am Orpheus, son of Apollo. Hades took 2 steps forward, as if to get a greater look at his nephew, which more so allowed his harsh profile and thick beard to be seen more visibly. Orpheus, in turn, did feel nervous. But why would the son of Apollo, a seeker of light, send his son here? Because I've lost someone. Eurydice. She was my wife. Hades grew silent. I'm sorry, Orpheus, but you can't have her back. She belongs here now. I shall make a deal with you. Oh, is that so? Orpheus removes the lyre from under his tunic. If I can play you a music that is the most beautiful music you've ever heard, then you, my dear uncle, will allow her to come back with me. The most beautiful music I've ever heard, as good as that of your father. Better, Orpheus responds confidently. With this innocent, youthful zeal, Orpheus takes out his lyre and begins to play it. The forlorn and reluctant king of the underworld shoulders lowered, and he sat upon a nearby stone as if to take it in more intensively. When Orpheus finished, he waited for Hades' approval. It's always nice to hear the music of the living world, he said after exhaling deeply. Indeed, you're right. It's the most beautiful music I've ever heard. Orpheus beams with pride. So you'll let me take her back then, uncle? Hades stands up to his foreboding height and begins to pace away from the rock. Yes, he states. With that, Orpheus nearly gasps in delight. Oh, thank you, but wait! Interrupts Hades. There are to be conditions. Tell me what they are. I'll do whatever you say. Very well, says Hades as he waves his hand. A large door opens up to a tunnel. I'll allow you to walk out of the underworld through this tunnel. Eurydice will follow right behind you. But until you have fully exited the underworld, don't look back. Under no circumstance should you look back. For if you do, you'll lose her. Hades motions Orpheus towards the tunnel. Orpheus reluctantly begins to enter into the tunnel. Somewhat relieved, he gets to leave on solid ground, rather than the tilt-a-whirl of the boat in which he arrived. Go on, urged Hades. She'll be right behind you. And so, Orpheus slowly, with trepidation, enters the tunnel. It was dark, with just barely enough light near the end of the tunnel to allow him to make out the confines of the dark, rocky texture of the tunnel around him. He proceeds forward, just hearing the echo of his own footsteps, only hearing the echo of his own footsteps. He recalls Hades' condition. Don't look back. And so he keeps trotting forward. And then suddenly, faintly, ever so quietly, he hears the most delicate of footsteps behind him. His heart beats and skips and accelerates. Yuri, is that you? But there was just silence. So he stops for a moment, and the footsteps behind him stop and turn. Eurydice? Again, no response. But he keeps walking forward, ecstatic at the possibility of returning Eurydice to the land of the living. But suddenly there's a shift, as if he's walking and the faint footsteps became dimmer behind him, until he suddenly hears nothing at all. He stops momentarily, but he hears nothing. And so he continues down the dark corridor that illuminates more and more with each step as he advances towards its finality, as the realm of the living takes hold like trees overtaking a desert. But the silence and uncertainty grow maddening. Has he lost her? Did she stop and not continue? Should he have stopped? Don't look back, Hades had said. But the end was almost there, just within reach. Would he reach the end without her? And so he stops again. Eurydice, talk to me. Can you hear me? But there's still no response. She wasn't there. He was sure of it. He needs to make sure she's okay. His protective instincts and his uncertainty all suddenly collide into one big ball of confusion. So he does the unthinkable. He looks back. Wide-eyed and scared, he sees Eurydice trying to scream, but no voice emerges. She reaches her hand out, but her body suddenly fades, bit by bit, grabbed by a bunch of hands behind her as she repeatedly tries to shout and grasp at Orpheus. Orpheus tries to reach back at her, hoping he could just grab just in time and pull her out of the tunnel, but it's no use. Her corporeal image dissipates back into the dark recesses of the tunnel. Orpheus falls to his knees and screams for Eurydice, but it's no use. She's gone. Back in the land of the living, the sun appears dimmer. The flavor of wine tastes bitter, as the pain and emptiness is just simply too much to bear. He does everything he can to dull the pain of having lost his love not once, but twice. And so he only plays the saddest of sad songs on his lyre. And so sad is the music that it enrages the Maenads, or the followers of Dionysus, who found the sad songs in such stark contrast to their preference for joyful, pleasure-seeking songs. And so in a fit of rage, to stop the Orpheus ruminous dark music, they tear him to shreds. And in his demise, he was inevitably reunited with his love Eurydice in the underworld. So I guess you could say that in the end, Orpheus does get the girl. Okay, so there you have it. Just to do a quick paraphrase of the story. Orpheus meets Eurydice. They fall madly in love. Eurydice dies and is taken to the underworld. Orpheus goes to retrieve her, where he is given conditions to which he can retrieve her, but he fails to meet those conditions and thus loses her. And that's the basic gist. Please note that there are different versions as well as different things that have been added on, but I think that I've captured basically like the main meat of it. It's also important to point out that there are three main characters that really, in order for a movie to be able to follow this model, has to follow the characters in some way, shape, or form. And that's Orpheus, the forlorn, depressed widower; Eurydice, the lover who is eternally lost and with whom we seek eternal return; and then Hades and the underworld, which is the place in which the lover is eternally lost. Also worth noting is Aristeus, the jealous antagonist. And when a movie or story follows the model of Orpheus and Eurydice, it's often referred to as being Orphic. So if we have a movie, one question that I'll be asking is, hey, what in the content makes this movie Orphic? And that's the topic, one of the main topics that we'll be exploring. And right now, after having listened to the story, you may even be churning your brain thinking, aha, I can already think of a movie that follows this arc, or the tropes from the story, which if you are, that is amazing. So without further ado, I think it's time to announce our very first film, and it's going to be Orphée by Jean Cocteau. Yes, this film is indeed a more literal interpretation, although it gets skewed in every direction possible. I promise we will get to more current films. But to begin, let's choose an absolute classic. And you can currently rent Orpheus on HBO Max, or you can watch it for free on Momentu Films, which is kind of an obscure channel you can download for free on Roku. Although you will be forced to watch, you'll be forced to watch some of the most asinine advertisements ever. I'm not gonna lie. But hey, I want to give special thanks to Lacey Cower on Pixel Bay for making the Liar sound free and available. I really appreciate you. And that is a wrap for episode 1, the pilot episode of Tale Oft Told. If you are here listening, I am absolutely grateful. I can't express my gratitude enough. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. And until then, please stay safe, everyone.